So take us back. You got into this business when you were 20 years old, and reading your bio, it said that you were dead broke. You had no money in the bank.
Yeah.
And you and your family, I think, immigrated here, and you were kind of like just really struggling trying to get yourselves together when you first came to the States.
Yeah, but I mean, in hindsight, I look back and I'm super grateful and thankful, right? Because, I mean, if I didn't have the background I didn't have, I don't think I would have worked as hard as I do now. I don't, and I definitely value the dollar, more than, I think most kids, when I grew up. So yeah, we immigrated to the country when I was 5 years old, and my dad was and still is today. He's a church pastor, so I'm a pastor's kid and whatnot, and. I don't know if you know a lot about pastors, but they don't really make a whole lot of money
right.
Unless you're one of the ones that are on TV, asking people to buy this prayer rock and it's gonna, help enhance your life, and and you're around, flying private jets, right? Like unless you're on TV, pastors generally they don't make a lot of money, nor should they, I believe, right? But so 5 years old, we were broke, right? And I guess that's one way to put it. I mean, most nights we were sleeping. Especially during the winter in the car because we couldn't afford to pay the heating bill. And I remember one time our family, we were at the park and I saw my mom. She was picking up these weeds and she was putting them in this plastic container. And I was wondering, what's she doing? And 3 hours later, I got my answer because it was on the dinner table. So it was a very interesting dichotomy that I grew up in. But I'll tell you the experience that kind of shifted everything for me. Everybody has their origin story, right? Like Peter Parker has the story of the spider biting his hand, and Batman has the story of his parents dying in the alleyway and whatnot. And fortunately, that wasn't my experience. But we lived next to the first apartment we lived in. We lived next to, let's call it I don't know how many kids watch our show, but let's call it a gentleman's entertainment center for now. Right? And I remember I was 6 years old. This was still our first year living in America. And it was about 1:30 a.m. in the morning. And I looked out the window and I'm watching people leave this gentleman's entertainment center. And there was one guy that stuck, that caught my eye, right? He stood out. And this guy was stumbling out the door. And it doesn't take much to understand that this guy had a really expensive suit on, right? Like even at 6 years old, like you can tell if something's really expensive, something's valuable, right? And so, he's got a nice watch on, really shiny, it shines when the street light hits it. Really nice suit, gets in a really nice car. I don't remember what exactly the car was, but I do remember an L, right, as the emblem. Obviously, it's Lexus, right? So he's getting in the car and whatnot, and I see him drive away. And what was really interesting is right after that, I turned 90 degrees to my left and I see my parents, who literally would give the last shirts off their back to help somebody else. They were just the most God-fearing, kind-hearted people. So I turned to my left and I see my parents sleeping in a twin bed in a room that doubled as their bedroom. Actually, not only just doubled, but it was their bedroom, it was our dining room, it was also our kitchen.
Wow.
And also part of our living room. And my brother and I, we didn't even have a bed. We were sleeping on the floor at the time in sleeping bags because we couldn't afford one, right? So the question I asked myself was, well, what if, right? Like, what if that guy who stumbled out of the gentleman's entertainment center, what if he had the same heart that my dad did? And then vice versa. What if people like my dad, who had this desire and this passion to help out his fellow man, to impact communities, what if he had the skill set of the guy who was stumbling out of the gentleman's entertainment? Like, what would the world look like? How differently would people's lives look? How differently would the world look? And I'm convinced, and I'm on a mission, right, to find out what that looks like and to create that, right? Because it's certainly not happening to its greatest capacity right now. So that was my background. Fast forward, like you said, I was 18 years old, had negative $187.65 in my bank account. And it wasn't that I was broke. It was more that I was farther away from creating that world where, people who were wealthy also had the heart for good, right? I was farther away from that mission than when I was 6, because when you're 6, I had zero money. When I was 18, I had negative $187.65 in my bank account. So that's what got me to start learning about real estate and learning about finance. So probably 18, 19, that's when I really started learning about finance in general. And then at 20, that's probably when I learned more specifically about real estate investing, because it took 2 years for me to understand that real estate was really kind of the best option there when it comes to investing.